After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Our conscious mind requires us to be present and active. Anytime we've had to focus on a task and put effort into it, or pay attention to what's going on, we are using our conscious mind. The subconscious mind, however, is entirely different, continuously running on autopilot in the background of our lives. It contains our memories, our habits, learned behaviors, beliefs, our internal programming, if you will. And it is continuously absorbing sensory input, sights, smells, sounds, feelings, taste. Imagine you are speaking to someone. Your conscious mind is engaged in conversation with the person in front of you, while your subconscious mind is taking note of and processing all the external stimuli around you, the signs in your peripheral vision, the cars in the background, even down to their color, the people around you, what they're wearing, the smells, the sounds you hear, all while you are not consciously aware. You see, from birth to approximately age 7, a child's mind is operating primarily within theta state brainwaves. These brainwaves occur typically in states of deep relaxation or while sleeping. During these 7 years, the child is almost in a state of hypnosis. And effectively, the subconscious mind is continuously processing and downloading information about how the world works and how to navigate it accordingly. The child begins recognizing behavior patterns from those in their immediate surroundings, learning how to speak, act, be, learning attitudes and say regards to money, love, and life circumstances. They learn what is socially acceptable and unacceptable, and begin building beliefs and programming that will shape the person they grow into. Bruce H. Lipton, PhD and stem cell biologist, in an interview with London Real said, "Give me a child until it's 7, and I will show you the man." These initial 7 years of development are perhaps therefore the most important programming years of a human life, because it is in these years that the subconscious mind is shaping and priming the programming that the child will inevitably be running off of for the rest of their life. For example, a child who grows up in a home where their parents are constantly fighting and arguing is going to have some type of subconscious programming that tells them that this is what love is, this is what marriage is, and this is what parents look like. This child may grow up to gravitate towards partners that they constantly fight and argue with and take out their own problems on. And in the event that this person does wake up to their programming and want to seek better partnerships and relationships, they may not even know how to find a healthy relationship simply because their inner programming has not given them a clear picture of what the healthy and loving relationships should look like. Lipton, in his book, The Biology of Belief, writes, "When it comes to sheer neurological processing abilities, the subconscious mind is millions of times more powerful than the conscious mind. If the desires of the conscious mind conflict with the programs in the subconscious mind, which mind do you think will win out? You can repeat the positive affirmation that you are lovable over and over and over again, or that your cancer tumor will shrink. But if as a child you heard over and over that you were worthless and sickly, those messages programmed in your subconscious mind will undermine your best conscious efforts to change your life." And this is how subconscious programming is always operating behind the scenes, dictating our behaviors, our reactions, our beliefs, and the reality we build based upon our beliefs. That is, of course, unless we choose to make the conscious effort to reprogram our subconscious mind. You see, the good news is that it is completely possible to rewire and reprogram your subconscious mind to one's benefit, as it is possible to have been programmed to one's detriment. You could reprogram your subconscious mind to abundance, wealth, love, beauty, health, anything that you can think of that is humanly possible, and even the impossible if you are daring enough to do so. Lipton's work in stem cell research has affirmed this. He writes, "Our genes are constantly being remodeled in response to life experiences, which again emphasizes that our perceptions of life shape our biology." Later, he also notes, "Thoughts, the mind's energy, directly influence how the physical brain controls the body's physiology." There are numerous, if not infinite, amounts of ways to go about reprogramming your subconscious mind. So this is a two-part series. In this video, which is part 1, I'm going to be showing you how it is possible through subliminal messages to reprogram your subconscious. And in the second part of this video, I will be showing you how to create your own subliminal messages so that you can begin this process. In recent years, self-help and spiritual communities online have been flooded with videos of subliminal messages, ranging anywhere from healing to clear skin. Videos upon videos with voices apparently affirming things like, "I am beautiful" and "I am love," meant to alter you to your desired reality. In fact, I've even made my own. But does this stuff really even work? Before we can utilize subliminal messages, let alone make our own, we must first come to an understanding about exactly what they are, how they came about, and the science behind them. Subliminal comes from the Latin stem limen, meaning threshold, and sub being a prefix that means under. In totality, the word in this context means beneath the threshold, or specifically beneath the threshold of consciousness. The term originating and translated from German psychologist 𝐻𝐼 𝐻𝐼𝐻𝐼. In other words, subliminal is a term for something that slips right past our conscious awareness, but as we learned, our subconscious mind still makes note of and stores. In an American Bar Association article published in 1984, Diane Kiesel writes, "Subliminal communications, or subliminal messages, are low-level audio messages or split-second video images that are whipped past the audience, which is supposed to absorb them subconsciously." You see, during this time, psychologists were closely examining whether or not external subliminal stimuli, or in other words, things in our world that we don't notice, had an underlying effect on us and our behavior. The basis for one of the most famous experiments on subliminal messaging took place in 1957 in a New Jersey movie theater by psychologist and market researcher James McDonald Vickery. The experiment was conducted on 45,699 unknowing moviegoers. During the duration of the movie, Vickery flashed frames for less than a second that said, "Hungry? Eat popcorn," and "Drink Coca-Cola." The text was so brief that the conscious mind would not have been able to process it, but as we learned, it was long enough for the subconscious mind to pick up on it. The intention was to see if moviegoers would be influenced by the subliminal messages and increase concession sales. By the end of the experiment, Vickery claimed that popcorn sales increased by 57.7% and Coca-Cola increased by 18.1%. However, Vickery apparently came out saying that his claims were fraudulent and that he needed to make money to keep his company up and running, and that the notoriety would help. Eventually, he mysteriously disappeared from the limelight and shut his company down. Despite Vickery's apparently fraudulent experiment, subliminal messaging was continued to be used in advertising afterwards, with further studies and businesses applying the same methods to test and influence unknowing audiences. Interestingly enough, the CIA even wrote a report called The Operational Potential of Subliminal Perception, prompted by Vickery's so-called experiment, indicating their plans to research subliminal messages. Clearly, the case of subliminal messages was enough to turn business marketers and CIA heads. But how exactly can simple words flashed on a screen influence the subconscious mind so powerfully that it can theoretically compel an audience and influence reality? This brings us to the power of words. Throughout the 1990s, Dr. Emato conducted a series of experiments observing the crystalline structures of water and the physical effects that words had on them. Dr. Emoto took various samples of water from the same source and spoke positive words like "I love you" and "thank you" to some samples, and then froze them. He used the same process on other water samples, but speaking words of negativity like "you make me sick" and "I will kill you." He then had photographers take photos of the frozen crystalline formations. The results were nothing short of extraordinary. The crystalline formations that were spoken the positive and loving words crystallized into beautiful, symmetric, and clear formations, while the crystalline formations that were spoken to negatively were murky, asymmetric, disturbed, and unpleasant. Through this experiment, Dr. Emoto was able to visibly prove how words, consciousness, and energy had extreme effects on the physical reality. Thus, it can be concluded that through subliminal commands and the effective power of words, we can alter our physical reality and our physiology. Which brings me to Wilson Bryan Key, author of Subliminal Seduction, a vast study and collection of subliminal messages in advertisement. He writes, "As far as advertising men are concerned, their job is to arouse you without your suspecting it. This very day, every time you looked at a TV commercial or an ad in print, you were probably being sexually assaulted by devices your conscious mind cannot detect." In the introduction of Key's book, written by Marshall McLuhan, McLuhan states, "The proclaimed purpose of the ad may, at one level, be just a decoy so that the ad may do its work on another level of consciousness." In this book, Key provides examples for subliminal messages in advertisements, which we will go over right now. In this image, we have a gin advertisement. Take a moment to see if it elicits any feelings in you or if you can spot any subliminal messages. And this is the subliminal message that was hidden. With this advertisement in particular, an experiment was conducted where they gathered over 1,000 test subjects and told them to look at the advertisement when relaxed, none of them familiar with subliminal techniques. They were told to relay whatever feelings the image elicited, and according to the study, 62% of people described feelings of satisfaction, sensuousness, sexuality, romance, stimulation, arousal, and excitement, to name a few. And as many of you know, in this day and age, sex sells. And according to Key, sex is the most frequently embedded word in the American advertising industry. These marketers and advertisers are smart. They know that if they elicit desirable feelings, and if feelings of sensuality are associated with their product, many can also be persuaded then by sex and reach for that particular brand of alcohol over another. People will also gravitate to that which they already have subtle, positive, associated feelings with, even if they are not consciously aware that it was programming that caused this. And that's the whole idea of the subliminal advertising world. It's that they want you to be influenced on the most minute of levels. Here is another alcohol ad filled with several sexual subliminal messages and imagery. So take a moment to pause and see if you pick up on anything. And here it is again with the subliminal imagery revealed. Oftentimes they use provocative images to once again elicit feelings of or synonymous to arousal. And I mean, as you can tell, this advertisement is already a bit subtly sexual in nature anyways, implying that every man should have an imp he can call his own. And we have a woman at the forefront of the advertisement. I don't need to explain it, y'all know. Anyways, this is an old Coca-Cola ad that was recalled, okay? So give it a moment, and I know some of you already saw it, but we're gonna give it a moment. And yep, here it is with these subliminal messages revealed. Yikes. And yes, subliminal advertising still exists to this day in various forms. As you can see here, this poster is not even trying to be subtle about it. Overall, throughout the years, subliminal messages have been found countless of times in advertisements, music, and even kids shows. And for the longest time, subliminal messages were being used to influence populations to behave in certain ways or elicit certain feelings. And we can see from these studies and advertisements how effective subliminal messages are. At the end of the day, advertising companies would not be implementing these methods and putting massive amounts of money into it if it wasn't in the slightest bit effective. Likewise, subliminal messaging can be in form a type of manipulation, especially emotional manipulation, which is why there is a lot of controversy about the use of public subliminal messages and how most of the time it is not morally or ethically sound to subliminally influence people without their awareness. In the American Bar Association article that was mentioned earlier, 𝗘𝐿 noted that the California Assembly passed a bill in 1983 that would require the people to be notified if they are about to be subjected to subliminal communication in a public space. The use of subliminal messages, according to the author of the bill, Philip Wyman R. Bakersfield, was said to be unethical and an inherently deceptive practice, and an invasion of the right to privacy. This article also speaks about a man named Becker, one of the authors in a paper presented to the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis, and once on the faculty of the Tulane Medical School. In his research, they've shown that thanks to subliminal messages, they were able to cut employee turnover in 2 stores of a large supermarket chain and reduce smoking in the staff lounge of a Missouri medical center. In a question of ethics, Becker stated that he wouldn't involve himself with the usage of subliminal messaging for advertising, politics, or religion, but that society could benefit from subliminal messages in other areas, like trying to reduce automobile accident deaths, for example. Becker himself has marketed subliminal messaging audio tapes to help weight loss and increase motivation. Despite Becker's positive results, counter voices like Joseph McCune, assistant professor at the Institute of Management and Labor Relations at Rutgers University, claim that it was still unethical to motivate people in the workplace without their knowledge. Which raises a good point. Because still, no laws have been passed regarding subliminal messaging. How do we know when we are being subliminally influenced and programmed? How do we know when we are being manipulated or aren't? And even if subliminal messages are being slipped in with good intent, is it still ethical to positively influence someone without them knowing? How do we know who to trust? I will end part 1 on these questions so that you can think over them. In part 2, we will expose some subliminal community scandals and get into how we can create our own subliminal messages. So, what do you think about subliminal messages, my dear watcher? Comment down below, let me know what you think, and if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more informational content like this, more content that will teach you and give you tools with how to reprogram your subconscious, do leave me a like below, maybe even subscribe. But if you don't, no worries. I wish you the best of luck, and I will see you in part 2. Bye!